America on alert. The first aerial view of Ground Zero in New York. And on a day of prayer and patriotism, the president urges America not to yield to terror.
Our nation was horrified, but it's not going to be terrorized.
America on alert. This is a special edition of NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw.
Good evening. Tonight, President Bush wants the American people to get on with the business of this country, to make a statement to the terrorists by tomorrow going back to school, back to the fields, the factories, and the shops. At the same time, he wants them to be alert to additional acts of terrorism as he puts this country on a war footing. It was that kind of Sunday. Prayer and mourning, pep talks, and war talk. Meanwhile, in New York today, the first devastating aerial pictures of the enormous scope of the destruction. These from a U.S. Coast Guard helicopter today, showing the full extent of the damage. And on the ground, no survivors yet again today, either here or at the Pentagon. New York's mayor raised the death toll again tonight. 180 are confirmed dead, 115 positively identified. The number of missing in New York has risen as well to 5,097. And at New York's St. Patrick's Cathedral this afternoon, one of thousands of services all over the nation. A shaken country begins a new week, and in many ways, a new era. We begin tonight with the massive efforts underway right now at the White House, both on the domestic front and militarily. We're joined by NBC's David Gregory tonight. David?
Tom, as you said today, the president urged Americans to return to work tomorrow, saying the country will be horrified but not terrorized. And at once trying to soothe the country and again prepare it for war, the president said, quote, "We will rid the world of evildoers."
Amid visibly tighter security at the White House this afternoon, the president and first lady returned from Camp David. Mr. Bush aides say intent on giving the country a pep talk after a week of horror, saying even as the government prepares for a massive military operation, he has confidence in the resiliency of the U.S. economy, with the financial market set to reopen tomorrow.
Our economy will come back. We'll still be the best farmers and ranchers in the world. We're still the most innovative entrepreneurs in the world. On this day of faith, I've never had more faith in America than I have right now.
Calling the war on terrorists, specifically Osama bin Laden, a crusade, the president said Americans must be prepared for the sacrifice of war.
So this will be a long campaign, a determined campaign, a campaign that will use the resources of the United States to win. They have roused a mighty giant, and make no mistake about it, we're determined.
But again today, the president cautioned the war will not end quickly, pointing out that bin Laden's organization, Al-Qaeda, is spread throughout many countries.
And the American people must be patient. I'm going to be patient. But right now we're facing people who hit and run. They hide in caves. We'll get them out.
For now, the administration is trying to build an international coalition of support for war. And even as some European allies have raised concerns about the appearance that the U.S. is inappropriately declaring war on the entire Islamic world, the president, who huddled today with his national security advisor, Condoleezza Rice, said he has spoken to and received support from three key countries: Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and India.
I gave them ample opportunity to say they were uncomfortable with our goal. And the leaders you've asked about have said they were comfortable. They said, "We understand, Mr. President, we're with you."
In the week ahead, White House sources say the president will be working on two tracks. He'll be spending a lot of time trying to minister the country. Mrs. Bush will play a large role in that area as well. And he will continue to develop a plan for war, a key element of which is building an international coalition, something the president is still trying to do. Tom?
Thanks very much, NBC's David Gregory at the White House tonight. The focus of the world tonight is on a remote and forbidding part of the world, some of the most difficult landscape anywhere, from just south of Russia to the edge of the Middle East. And two countries are the primary concern. Pakistan, cooperating so far with the U.S., and its radical neighbor, Afghanistan, widely believed to be the home to Osama bin Laden. NBC's Ron Allen is in Islamabad, Pakistan tonight. Ron?
Tom, again tonight, Osama bin Laden issued a statement insisting that he had nothing to do with those terror attacks in the U.S. Still later this morning, a team of Pakistani officials will head to Afghanistan to tell the Taliban, hand over bin Laden or prepare to face a U.S.-led assault. Pakistan's decision to help the U.S. has sparked angry protests. Orthodox Muslims who say there's no proof bin Laden was behind the attacks. Trying to force Afghanistan to hand him over, they say, is a betrayal of Islam.
We can't assist them, America, against a Muslim country. Because we are Muslim, it is against our faith and against our religion.
Pakistan fears the protests could trigger widespread unrest if this country, as promised, gives the U.S. its full support. Pakistan's president spent the day struggling to convince a skeptical public that helping the U.S. is in this country's best interest. It's a challenge for many Muslim leaders who support the U.S., but where anti-American sentiment is strong, especially because of its close relationship with Israel.
You will get the right support from the Arab countries and the Islamic countries that really abhor what they saw, because this has nothing to do with Islam or what Arabs and Muslims stand for the world over.
In Afghanistan, Taliban leaders are reportedly fortifying bunkers and military installations, urging their people to prepare for a holy war, vowing to protect bin Laden to the end, a man they call a guest.
It is not up to the host to tell the guest to leave the house.
As the threat of war increases, more refugees are fleeing the country. Today, even the last foreign Red Cross staff left, aid workers who usually stay behind during the worst conflicts. Already, Taliban officials have warned they will seek revenge against any nation that helps the United States attack. Meanwhile, there are reports that bin Laden and his family have moved to hideouts deep inside Afghanistan. Tom?
Thanks very much, NBC's Ron Allen tonight in Islamabad. And now to the investigation, which is moving forward around the world tonight. And joining me from our terrorism task force is NBC's Pete Williams. Pete?
Tom, good evening. The FBI makes more arrests today to hold people for further questioning as agents rush to find anyone with knowledge of terrorists still at large who could pose a danger of yet more attacks. As federal agents find a passport of one of the hijackers in the debris left from the terror attack on New York, government officials tell NBC News tonight that the FBI is now intensely interested in two men brought to New York for questioning, one now charged as a material witness. The two were arrested last week on an Amtrak train in Fort Worth, Texas. At first, they were detained for meeting the profile of drug couriers paying cash for their tickets. But it turns out they were originally on a flight from Newark Airport the morning of the suicide attacks. When domestic flights were grounded, they switched to the train. Federal officials tell NBC News that the two, identified as Ayub Khan and Mohammed Asmath, appear to have links to the terrorist network behind Tuesday's attack. Agents searched their New Jersey apartment Saturday. In California today, the owner of this San Diego flight school says his records show that two of the actual hijackers took a few lessons there last year. The FBI says the two were aboard the plane that crashed into the Pentagon. The school says the two made clear they wanted to fly commercial jets.
They said they want to fly Boeing. That's why I remember.
Federal agents also focus on a man who last month showed up at a Minnesota flying school offering $10,000 in cash for training on a jet simulator. Zacharias Moussaoui has now been sent to New York for more questioning as the FBI investigates whether he has ties to the terrorist network. In Washington tonight, congressional leaders are briefed at the FBI where the Attorney General urges them to approve broader wiretapping powers, allowing federal agents to tap any phone a suspect uses. Current law ties wiretaps to a specific phone number.
It simply doesn't make sense to have the surveillance authority associated with the hardware or with the phone instead of with the person or the terrorist.
But privacy advocates tonight urge Congress not to act hastily.
When you expand the authority of government to conduct surveillance, you necessarily create the opportunities for more innocent people to become the targets of investigative authority.
The FBI is also searching public libraries in South Florida where it believes the hijackers may have used computers to communicate with each other. And the FBI is asking all the nation's flight schools for their records of recent students. Tom?
Thanks very much, NBC's Pete Williams in Washington tonight. Here in New York, the enormous rescue and recovery effort keeps going night and day. NBC's Jim Avila joins us now from downtown Manhattan near Ground Zero. Jim?
Tom, there's no slowdown here. The firefighters continue to dig by hand, looking for any sign of life. The dogs continue to sniff for a scent, but nothing. Just day after day of backbreaking work that no one has the stomach to abandon. Day 6 and the first aerial pictures allowed of the devastation, showing America the scope of the damage. Block after block of the nation's most densely packed neighborhood, now only rubble. The rescue workers call it the pit.
It's not a place where you want your average Joe who wants the help to go down there and help.
A 7-story high pile refusing to yield a single life since Wednesday.
You're doing a lot of work and it seemed very, almost no return, you know, like just really hard, you know.
Newark firefighter Daniel Kramer working the pit for 3 days, sifting through the terrible rubble and rescuing no one.
You dig, and all of a sudden you just hit this like wall of steel, and there's really nothing that you, as a digger, can do.
But the effort is still there. The city, and especially its fire department, reluctant to change from rescue of lives to recovery of bodies.
But the reality is that in the last several days we haven't found anyone.
There is some scientific basis for limited hope. Experts say more than 99% of all building collapse survivors are found within the first 48 hours. But in rare cases, humans can survive that kind of disaster for as many as 10 to 14 days.
When you're dealing with 5,000 people, there's still a chance that there could be 5 survivors up to a week or so.
Construction engineers say it's important to remember that this was not an ordinary building collapse.
The mass weight above, in all probability, collapsed any and everything in its path. And I hate to say it, but it's doubtful that any survivors are going to be found.
So why keep digging in a pit so hopelessly deep?
I don't think that we could ever give up hope.
In fact, those who have been through this before say as the days progress, the rescue effort becomes as much for the living as for those who may be dead.
Even after we knew there's not going to be anybody remaining alive in this situation, it was still important that we were able to recover the family's loved ones.
One firefighter told me today that working in the pit is like working in hell itself. There's a stubborn fire burning beneath your feet. You're surrounded by evil effects, and no matter how much good you try to do, there are no results. Tom?
Thanks very much, NBC's Jim Avila tonight near Ground Zero in Lower Manhattan. Tonight, first-hand details of what it was like inside the White House as Tuesday's attack unfolded. Vice President Dick Cheney was in his West Wing office as the hijacked planes hit the World Trade Center. In an exclusive interview with Tim Russert on NBC's Meet the Press today, he gave Tim a detailed account of what he was doing when the worst foreign attack ever launched on U.S. continental soil was launched.
A little before 9, my speechwriter came in. We were going to go over some speeches coming up, and my secretary called in just as we were starting to meet, just before 9 o'clock, and said an airplane had hit the World Trade Center. That was the first one that went in. So we turned on the television and watched for a few minutes and then actually saw the second plane hit the World Trade Center. And as soon as that second plane showed up, that's what triggered the thought terrorism.
You sensed it immediately. This is deliberate.
Yeah. Then I convened in my office and we started talking about getting the counterterrorism task force up and operating. I talked with the president while I was there over the next several minutes watching developments on television, and as we started to get organized to figure out what to do, my Secret Service agents came in, and they, under these circumstances, they just move. They don't say, sir, or ask politely. They came in and said, sir, we have to leave immediately, and grabbed me and
literally grabbed you and moved you.
Yeah, and your feet touch the floor periodically, but they're bigger than I am, and they hoisted me up and moved me very rapidly down the hallway, down some stairs, through some doors, and down some more stairs into an underground facility under the White House. And it's in effect a corridor, locked at both ends, and they did that because they'd received a report that an airplane was headed for the White House.
This is Flight 77, which had left Dulles.
Flight 77. It left Dulles. Best we can tell, they came initially at the White House. And
the plane actually circled the White House?
Didn't circle it, but was headed on a track into it.
Tracking it by radar.
And when it entered the danger zone and looked like it was headed for the White House was when they grabbed me and evacuated me to the basement. The plane obviously didn't hit the White House, turned away, and we think flew a circle and came back in and then hit the Pentagon. And that's what the radar track looks like. The result of that, once I got down into the shelter, the first thing I did, there's a secure phone there. First thing I did was pick up the telephone and call the president again, who was still down in Florida at that point, and strongly urged him to delay his return.
You told him to stay away from Washington.
I said, delay your return. We don't know what's going on here, but it looks like, we've been targeted.
Vice President also told Tim Russert today that he recommended to the president that if necessary, they would use fighter planes to shoot down any commercial airliner that might be headed for the U.S. Capitol or other Washington buildings. There is fresh evidence tonight of America's support for the Bush administration. In a new poll by NBC News and the Wall Street Journal, 78% of those questioned have a great deal or quite a bit of confidence in the president's ability to manage this crisis. On the question of whether the United States should retaliate before being completely sure who was responsible for the attack, 81% say the United States should wait, which is what the president has said he plans to do. Almost three-quarters believe the U.S. eventually will capture the prime suspect, Osama bin Laden. But that task will not be easy. Joining us from the Pentagon tonight is NBC's Jim Eklashevsky. Jim?
Tom, Vice President Dick Cheney today called terrorism mean, nasty, dirty, and dangerous. And the U.S. is preparing now to fully fight the terrorists on their own turf.
Weekend warriors, reservists at Travis Air Force Base, California, called up to help identify the dead still being recovered from beneath the rubble of last week's terrorist attack. On the other side of the Pentagon, plans continue for retaliation, possible open-ended airstrikes, and a ground invasion against Afghanistan, which harbors the prime suspect, Osama bin Laden. But Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld said today the long-term battle will be fought in a different kind of war against an enemy that's difficult to target.
The terrorists who are attacking our way of life do not have armies, navies, or air forces. They do not have capitals.
Osama bin Laden is constantly on the move, often hiding in caves. And many terrorist cells work in the heart of major cities, surrounded by innocent civilians. That makes conventional weapons like cruise missiles useless. The U.S. tried to kill bin Laden in a missile strike 3 years ago, but he escaped unharmed. Instead, the U.S. must engage in an entirely different kind of warfare.
These are people who operate in the shadows, and we have to deal with them in the shadows.
That means high-risk, small-scale commando raids by U.S. Special Forces in the backwaters and back alleys around the world to root out and kill terrorist cells one by one. But military action is not America's only weapon. The U.S. will try to hit the terrorists where it hurts, their bank books, tracking and freezing the vast sums of money they need to operate.
This battle won't be easy. There are terrorist cells in more than 50 countries around the world. The cell that pulled off the terrorist attacks last week here in the U.S. wasn't even detected until too late. Tom?
Thank you very much, NBC Jim Eklashevsky at the Pentagon tonight. And when we come back, the new realities for American air travel, what to expect when the stock market opens tomorrow.
Hate crimes mostly start with hate speech. So watch what you say, especially in front of your kids.
After a few painful rides, I was back on the beginner's trail. Then something dawned on me. My sore muscles were telling me where to ride. That did it. I started taking Advil, just like the other bikers. Advil is strong enough to let me control the pain, really knock it out. Now I decide if I want the beginner's trail or Suicide Hill. Take Advil and take control.
Our guarantee is our promise.
If you're not happy with your glasses, you can bring them back. No questions.
That's what LensCrafters 30-day money-back guarantee is all about.
Right on target. Now, Grecian 5 hair color targets only your gray hair to leave subtle tones like your own natural color, all in 5 easy minutes. Grecian 5 targets only the gray.
The impact of the World Trade Center disaster on this nation is difficult to measure completely tonight, but a hint can be found in our latest poll. which discovered that as the day of terror was unfolding last Tuesday, 1 in 6 Americans afraid a family member or a friend was in danger. At the nation's airports, the new security procedures aimed at preventing more attacks are creating problems tonight in air traffic. We have NBC's Robert Hager now at Washington's Dulles Airport. Robert?
Tom, with a tight security, and it is tight, the lines at airports everywhere are long, very long, and the number of planes flying is greatly reduced. United, for instance, flew only 1/5 its normal Sunday schedule.
Most airlines now formally recommend arriving at the airport at least 2 hours before a domestic flight, if not longer. Why? Because counter lines move so slowly. Often even passengers with e-tickets must first wait in those lines, and once at the counter, many check-in bags are now pulled aside to be checked thoroughly by hand, or even sent away to go through big X-ray scanners. And passengers can't leave the counter or even get a boarding pass until all checked luggage is okay. And now there's much tougher personal screening too. The machines set more sensitively than ever, sound alarms even for metal buttons. More passengers than ever must be screened again with wines. Even coffee cups have to be opened and shown, and all sharp objects are seized, even nail clippers. Here at Dulles Airport, we followed George and Yvonne Dodsworth through this maze today.
Well, I guess it's going to be another 2 hours or an hour and a half before we get up there.
It took them 2.5 hours, but they'd allowed plenty of extra time.
That's not bad. Our plane doesn't leave until 4 o'clock this afternoon.
Changes on planes may come too. Today, the government asked a new task force to look into strengthening cockpit doors, making them tougher for a hijacker to open. But Transportation Secretary Norman Mineta warned there are problems for pilots.
If you close the door and, like a bank vault, sit there and seal the cockpit, it makes it tough.
Airlines warn the costs of the new security and lost business will mount into the billions and threaten some with bankruptcy. And they're forced to pay back passengers for canceled tickets, too.
If you have a flight that you're going to go on between now and September 25th, for example, every airline is basically saying, we'll refund your money in full without any penalties or restrictions or fees.
Today, Delta became the latest to cut back its schedule permanently by 20%, joining United, American, and Northwest.
Meantime, the government said today it hopes eventually to reopen Washington's Reagan National Airport, but with major restrictions, and the timetable isn't clear yet. Tom?
Thanks very much. NBC's Robert Hager tonight at Washington's Dulles Airport. The World Trade Tower stood as a symbol, of course, of this economic power in this country. The New York Stock Exchange nearby, which has been closed since Tuesday's attack, resumes trading tomorrow. From the stock exchange floor tonight, Maria Bartiromo of CNBC. Maria, what do they expect tomorrow morning? A lot of these big institutions going to have some buy orders to prop up the market?
Well, probably, Tom. I would think that most people would like to see a strong market tomorrow just for the sense of patriotism. Of course, there have been worries that we would see a decline. No doubt we'll see a lot of volatility. It's anyone's guess, really, where the market goes, but I would expect probably a decline and then an effort to take the market higher.
Maria, a lot of the people that I've been talking to in the financial sector in the last 2 days are saying it's very important for the American people to have a sense of confidence about the long-term economy.
Absolutely, and there is that confidence, certainly on the part of the leaders, officials on the federal level. Tomorrow will be a big test. There has been testing going on here at the New York Stock Exchange all weekend with regards to connectivity, making sure the Merrill Lynches of the world and other large brokerage firms can actually get their orders to the floor here at the exchange and have those orders processed. Dick Grasso, the CEO of the exchange, says that he's confident that things will move smoothly and move efficiently.
One of the things that we have not talked very much about is the fact that because this disaster occurred in the heart of the financial district, there was an enormous loss of intellectual potential, if you will. A lot of young people and a lot of senior people as well in those banking firms in the World Trade Center.
Absolutely, Tom. I think that that impact does not change overnight. There was a real loss of brain trust. Some talented people at some of the largest brokerage firms and investment banks, that will be with us for some time to come. There is a psychological impact on all of this that will just be here and certainly change the way people do business and the tone of business.
Is there any speculation down there about a lot of the financial sector moving out of New York City, maybe across the river into New Jersey?
There has been that speculation. In fact, already you have been seeing a reluctance to really just be in this city. People have been leaving the city, going to Connecticut or just any other areas that are busy with business. And there is a big portion of Wall Street firms that actually have already moved to Connecticut, not since Tuesday, but there has been an effort to do that over the last year or so. I would expect that that certainly would accelerate with this development.
Thank you so much tonight. CNBC's Maria Bartiromo, who will be at her post tomorrow for the opening of the stock exchange. Mayor Giuliani is scheduled to ring the bell. In a moment, how this national family is moving through the grieving process.
So, that comment you made the other day about the person with a different skin color or religion or language, you didn't really mean anything by it, right? But someone could get hurt. Maybe even your own kid. When kids repeat your racist remarks or your prejudiced jokes, it can hurt them as much as the people it's aimed at. Don't teach your kids to hate, because hate destroys.
Maalox Quick Dissolve challenges regular Tums. Who dissolves quicker? Maalox. Neutralizes more acid? Maalox. Has more calcium? Maalox. 3 ways the right choice is Maalox Quick Dissolve. Agree or it's free.
Our guarantee is our promise.
If you're not happy with your glasses, you can bring them back. No questions.
That's what LensCrafters' 30-day money-back guarantee is all about.
If you want to help. At NBC, our thoughts and prayers are with the people of America.
NBC's new season begins on September 24th. We hope on that day you'll join us.
What's new at Marlowe? Delicious furniture, tempting prices, and for dessert, free financing, no finance charges, and no monthly payments until 2003. Free furniture until 2003. Now through Tuesday at Marlowe. Don't miss it. Marlowe, Washington's furniture superstore.
For 6 days now, we have been living with terror, grief, shock, disbelief, and a coming war. Tomorrow begins a new week, and while none of that other stuff will go away, it is the beginning of the next phase of our lives, the time after the attack, the time to rebuild in so many ways. NBC's Chip Reid tonight on how that journey begins in the neighborhoods around Ground Zero.
14,000 businesses in Lower Manhattan were affected by the World Trade Center disaster, many destroyed. Others will take weeks, even months, to reopen. But here on streets that just a few days ago were deserted and covered with ash, there are already signs of recovery. Many damaged stores already open. Hundreds of others plan to open Monday. Thousands of tons of debris and trash ready to be carted off. Reminders of the horror of Tuesday, September 11th are everywhere. Still, the fighting spirit here lives on.
I mean, this is New York City. I mean, you can't just dump this section because there was a terrorist action over there. It's going to be probably slow at the first couple of weeks, but then, sure, eventually we're going to just come back as normal. I mean, we got to normalize their life. I mean, otherwise they won't.
But many here admit they're going about daily activities that are normal only in appearance.
I don't think normal is possible right now, especially here. I think that we've been doing somewhat normal things because we have to do them, but it's been anything but normal.
Just feel a sense of helplessness and hopelessness, but I know we will get stronger from this, and I love my country.
From coast to coast today, there were demonstrations of patriotic fervor from Little Haiti in Miami all the way to Southern California. But some of the most powerful expressions of national strength and national unity today were made in churches where pastors and priests across the country say attendance exceeded anything they have ever seen. An overflow crowd of thousands at St. Patrick's Cathedral in Midtown Manhattan. In Harlem at Abyssinian Baptist Church, an outpouring of grief and a celebration of life. And at the Crystal Cathedral in Southern California, a day of prayer and patriotism. And a determination that this nation will